In our lesson today, we're going to look at two-step equations again, this time equations that include fractions and decimals. And it's important to remember that when you're solving equations, you want to get the variable alone. Our goal hasn't changed. We always want to try to isolate the variable. Remember that if the number is multiplying the variable, then you will need to divide by that number in order to isolate your variable. For example, in our first example, 4n equals 228. The 4 is multiplying n. All right, we need to get the value of just one n. Since 4 is multiplying n, in order to get one n, we'll have to divide by 4. And remember, whatever you do on one side of the equation, you have to do on the other side of the equation. So I'm also going to divide the right-hand side by 4. 4n divided by 4 gives us 1n on the left, and on the right, 228 divided by 4 is equal to 57. So if the number is multiplying the variable, all you have to do is divide by that number. So in our middle example, 3/4 n equals 45. 3/4 is multiplying n, so in order to get n all by itself, I'm going to have to divide by 3/4. And if I do that on the left, I'm going to do the same thing on the right. On the left-hand side, 3/4 divided by 3/4 is 1, so this is just 1n. And to do 45 divided by 3/4, 45, I'm going to make that a fraction, divided by 3/4. Well, remember, that's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So we would do 45 over 1 times 4 over 3. I can simplify early with 45 and 3. They have a common factor of 3. 3 goes into 3 once and into 45 15 times. And now when I multiply 15 over 1 times 4 over 1, I get a value of 60. So n is equal to 60. All right. In our last example, 2/3 n equals 44. So again, 2/3 is multiplying n. So I'll divide each side by 2/3. On the left, 2/3 n divided by 2/3 is 1n. And then I need to do 44 divided by 2/3, which again is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. 44 over 1 times 3 over 2. 2 and 44 have a common factor of 2. 2 goes into 2 once and into 44 22 times. And so when you do 22 over 1 times 3 over 1, you get 66. So n has a value of 66. So looking back at the last two examples that we did, hopefully you noticed something, okay? What are you really doing when you're dividing by a fraction? Okay, in order to isolate the variable, we divided both sides by the fraction, but to get the number, we actually multiplied. We are multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay, just like we did back in topic number 1. In order to do the division, we actually turned this into a multiplication problem. We multiplied by the reciprocal in order to get our answer. Okay, so here in the box, that's exactly what they're telling us to do. To solve an equation that has a fractional coefficient, simply multiply by the reciprocal of the fraction. That's your multiplicative inverse property. So let's go ahead and try that in example number 1. 3/5 m is equal to 96. All right, instead of dividing each side by 3/5, remember I would technically have to multiply 96 by the reciprocal of 3/5, which is 5/3. So that's what I'm going to do on both sides. I'm going to multiply both sides by 5/3. I'm going to put 96 over 1. And this is going to be really nice because if we look at the left, the 5 and the 5 are going to turn into 1s. The 3 and the 3 are going to turn into 1s. So it's 1 over 1 times 1 over 1m, which is just our 1m, which is what we want. And now if we look on the right, we can simplify with the 3 and the 96. They have a common factor of 3. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 96 32 times. So now we have 32 over 1 times 5 over 1, which is going to be equal to 160. Okay, so m equals 160. We think we're going to check to make sure that we did this correctly. So remember, with a check, the first thing you have to do is rewrite the problem. 3/5 m equals 96. We think m is 160, so we'll do 3/5 times 160, and I'll put that over 1 equals 96. Now, before we multiply, we can simplify with 5 and 160. They have a common factor of 5. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 160 32 times. So we have 3 over 1 times 32 over 1, which is 96. and 96 equals 96, so the equation checks, and I know that m equals 160. In the second example, we have 4/7 m equals 24. Instead of dividing each side by 4/7, remember we would technically have to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 7/4. So let's do that on each side. I'm going to multiply by 7/4 on the left. So I'll multiply by 7/4 on the right and put 24 over 1. Bring your equal sign down. On the left, the 7s simplify to 1s, and the 4s simplify to 1s. 1 over 1 times 1 over 1m is just our 1m. On the right-hand side, 24 and 4 have a common factor of 4. 4 goes into 4 once and into 24 6 times. So it's 6 over 1 times 7 over 1, which is 42. Doing our check now, just to make sure that we are correct here. Remember to rewrite the problem. 4/7 m equals 24. And we think that m is equal to 42. So we replace m with that value. And before we multiply, 7 and 42 have a common factor of 7. 7 goes into 7 once, into 42 6 times. So we have 4 over 1 times 6 over 1, which is equal to 24. 24 equals 24, so the check works. And I know that m equals 42. In example number 4, we have a two-step equation. Our goal is to isolate the variable term first. So we see the variable term on the left-hand side where it says 4/5 a. It's not alone on the left, though. It has that positive 7 there that we need to remove. So we're going to start by subtracting 7 from each side. Okay? Well, on the left-hand side, when you do 7 minus 7, that is 0, leaving you with 4/5 a. And on the right-hand side, 39 minus 7 is 32. 4/5 a equals 32. Now we need to get the value of 1a, so we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 4/5, which is 5/4. Do it on the right as well, multiply by 5/4. On the left-hand side, the 5s simplify to 1s, the 4s simplify to 1s, so you're left with a, your variable. And on the right-hand side, 4 and 32 have a common factor of 4. 4 goes into 4 once, into 32 8 times. 8 over 1 times 5 over 1 is equal to 40. All right, I'm going to do my check down here. Okay, we had 4/5 a, plus 7 equals 39. And I think that a is 40. So I'll substitute that value in. Before I multiply, 5 and 40 have a common factor of 5. 5 goes into 5 once and into 40 8 times. So 4 over 1 times 8 over 1 is 32. Bring down the plus 7 equals 39. And now when you add 32 and 7, you do get 39. 39 equals 39, which checks. So A has a value of 40. In example 7, we have another two-step equation. Notice everything is fractions this time, the coefficients and the constants. Our goal is still the same, though. Get that variable term all by itself first, and then figure out the value of 1n. So we have 2/3 n plus 5/12 equals 3/4. All right, the variable term is on the left, but it's not alone. It's got that 5/12 with it. So we're going to start by subtracting 5/12 on each side. Okay, on the left-hand side, 5/12 minus 5/12 is 0, leaving us with 2/3 n. And on the right-hand side, we have 3/4 minus 5/12. Remember, we would need common denominators here. Fourths and twelfths, we'll use twelfths. So 3/4 is the same as 9/12. So this is 9/12 minus 5/12, which is going to be equal to 4/12. So our equation now says 2/3 n equals 4/12. Now to get the value of n, we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3/2. So we do it on the left and the right-hand side, multiply by 3/2. On the left-hand side, the 3's become 1's, the 2's simplify to 1's, so all of this on the left is just n. And on the right-hand side, we have a bunch of simplifying that we can do, okay? 4 and 2 have a common factor of 2. 2 goes into 2 once and into 4 twice. 3 and 12 have a common factor of 3. 3 goes into 3 once and into 12 4 times. And now the 2 in the numerator and the 4 in the denominator have a common factor of 2. 2 goes into 2 once and into 4 twice. So we have 1 over 2 times 1 over 1, which is just 1/2. N equals 1/2. We'll make sure by doing our check now. Okay, so I'm going to do my check. And the problem said 2/3 n plus 5/12 equals 3/4. I think that n is 1/2, so I'll replace n with 1/2. Okay, I have 2/3 times 1/2, which is going to be equal to 2/6 plus 5/12 equals 3/4. And now I'm going to add 2/6 with 5/12. Remember, I need to have common denominators. 6 and 12ths, I'll use 12ths. So 2/6 is 4/12 plus 5/12 equals 3/4. Now when I add 4/12 and 5/12, I get 9/12 equals 3/4. And then if you simplify the 9 and the 12, if you divide both of those numbers by 3, you will indeed get 3/4 equal to 3/4. So the equation checks, and I know that n had a value of 1/2. Let's look at some equations that contain decimals in them. In question number 5, we have 4m plus 2 3/10 equals 2 58/100. This again is a two-step equation, and our goal is to get the variable term alone first, and then figure out the value of 1m. So the variable term is on the left-hand side, 4m, but it's not alone. It has the 2 3/10 with it. So we'll start by subtracting 2 3/10 on both sides in order to get the variable term all by itself. On the left-hand side, 2 3/10 minus 2 3/10 is 0, leaving us with 4m. And on the right-hand side, if you do 2 58/100 minus 2 and I can make that 2 30/100, that's going to leave me with just 28/100. So 4m equals 28/100. Now I want the value of just 1m. So since 4 is multiplying m, I'm going to divide by 4 on the left, which means I have to do the same thing on the right. 4m divided by 4, that gives us the 1m that we're looking for. And if you punch 28/100 divided by 4 into your calculator, you'll get an answer of 7/100. M equals 7/100. In example number 6, we have 1 5/10 m minus 3 5/10 equals 2 5/10. Let's get the 1 5/10 m alone on the left-hand side. There's a negative 3 5/10 that's on the same side with it. So in order to get the variable term alone, let's add 3 5/10 to both sides. Equal sign comes down. On the left, negative 3.5 plus 3.5 is 0. So that leaves us with just the variable term 1 5/10 m. And on the right-hand side, if you add 2 5/10 with 3 5/10, you get a value of 6. 1 5/10 m equals 6. Now we want the value of just 1m, so I'm going to divide both sides by that 1 5/10. On the left, 1.5 m divided by 1.5 is just our 1m. And on the right-hand side, if you do 6 divided by 1 5/10, you get a value of 4. M equals 4. In example number 7, notice that 2/10 is multiplying the parentheses n minus 3, and it equals negative 10. Okay, this is going to be a multi-step equation. Okay, I can't do n minus 3 in the parentheses because they're not similar terms. So what I'm going to do here is use the distributive property in order to come up with a two-step equation that I can then solve. So 2/10 has to multiply both of the terms inside of the parentheses. So I'm going to start by doing 2/10 times 1n, and then I'm going to do plus 2/10 times, that's a negative 3 inside of the parentheses. And again, the answer to the equation is negative 10. So if you multiply 2/10 times 1n, that's just 2/10 n. And then if you do 2/10 times -3, you're going to get -6/10. So -6/10 equals -10. And that is your two-step equation. So we have to get the variable term 2/10 n by itself. There's a -6/10 on the same side, so we'll start by adding 6/10 to both sides. On the left-hand side, if you do -6/10 plus 6/10, that's 0, leaving you with 2/10 n. And on the right, if you punch in -10 plus 6/10 into your calculator, that's going to give you -9 4/10. So 2/10 n equals -9 4/10. Now to get the value of 1n, we'll have to divide the left-hand side by the 2/10, which means we'll do the same thing on the other side. On the left, 2/10 n divided by 2/10 is just n. And on the right, if you punch in -9 4/10 divided by 2/10 into your calculator, you're going to get an answer of -47. N equals -47. In example number 8, we again have the decimal -6/10 multiplying the parentheses m plus 2/10, and the answer is 1 8/10. So very similar to the last example, we're going to have to distribute in order to make our two-step equation. So we're going to start by doing -6/10 times 1m minus 6/10 times the 2/10, and the answer again is 1 8/10. If we multiply -6/10 by 1m, we get -6/10 m. -6/10 times 2/10 is -12/100, so -12/100 equals 1 8/10. And so we have to get the -6/10 m by itself on the left-hand side. There's the -12/100 that we need to remove, so we're going to add 12/100 on the left, which means we're going to add 12/100 on the right. On the left-hand side, -12/100 plus 12/100 is 0, leaving us with the -6/10 m. And on the right-hand side, 1 8/10 plus 12/100 is going to be 1 92/100. Now we need to get the value of 1m. Since it's being multiplied by -6/10, we'll divide by -6/10 on the left, and then we'll do the same thing on the right. On the left-hand side, -6/10 m divided by -6/10 is the 1m that we're looking for. And on the right-hand side, if you punch into your calculator 1 92/100 divided by -6/10, you'll get an answer of -3 2/10. M equals -3 2/10.